Hi, I'm Phil Whitby and you are here to watch my video on biases in business, and this is the video on the backfire effect. So what do people argue about on the internet now? Flat earthers, they used to argue about Obama's birth certificate, Hillary's emails, still argue about anti-vaxers and homeopathy. So how many times have you got into an argument online with somebody who was any of these kind of member of any of these kind of groups and felt like you've shot them down with a great piece of evidence that you've linked to that's definitive in proving that vaccines are safe, the earth is, an oblate spheroid? But let me reassure you, if you were worried whether they took your argument and you changed their mind, you absolutely did not do that. 99% of the time, those people will have disregarded your evidence and in fact come away feeling even more strongly justified in believing what they originally believed. Now this is similar to conspiracy theorists protecting their axioms that we discussed a few videos ago, but the difference is this can also, or predominantly, applies to beliefs that aren't that extreme or aren't necessarily that irrational. They're just up for debate. So it doesn't have to be, anti-vaxxers and flat earthers. It can be, a belief that, say, smacking a child is good for the child, something like that, which is kind of one of those topics that kind of goes back and forth over generations with no clear accepted answer, just trends. Now, a really popular study on this phenomenon was carried out quite a few years ago by a couple of psychologists, and they deliberately published or faked publishing some articles on politically polarizing subjects. So, they could be about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction from early this century. It could be an article on that saying that it was definitively true that Iraq had them. And then they would later publish a retraction, an article that said, oh, actually we were mistaken, evidence has come to light that there were no such weapons of mass destruction. Now, they presented these articles to people, the first article being positive about the existence of Iraq's weapons, and when they showed them to people who, initially believed that to be the case anyway, when given the subsequent article retracting that, those people strengthened their belief in weapons of mass destruction being in Iraq, whereas those who already were sceptical were not affected greatly at all. And this kind of tendency for people to have to strengthen their belief was found in all kinds of touchy subjects like abortion or tax evasion. So it makes people think of the quote, the lie goes halfway around the earth before the truth has got its trousers on, which is a brilliant quote and really does apply here. And I think this implicit understanding that this is the case is how partisan politics works. Often, in particular left or right-leaning newspaper will release an attack article on a candidate, and whenever a retraction is made, it's always in the small column. Later, even though they've done it begrudgingly, it doesn't seem to do anything to stem the belief anyway. Clearly there's an issue with the ethics of newspaper editors, but something could be done about this, but I'm not quite sure what. I wonder whether the root of this kind of beliefs are much deeper than using evidence. Now I think people use confirmation bias and seek out evidence that confirms something they already believe. And for a lot of people that, for instance, believe that Obama didn't have a real birth certificate, or at least he wasn't born in America, so it wasn't legally allowed to become president. Those people, their underlying belief was one of racism and fear, and it didn't matter whether the birth certificate was published. Those people were still going to be racist against Obama, so we're still going to believe that. So really, in this case, what can you do? How can you deal with these people? So this is relevant to business in the sense that the market itself or the real world around you is something that can't be argued with. If if you're looking for a new enterprise, or you've got a new product that you think is going to corner a market, but the feedback, from your initial sales or anything, or research is negative, then it's really difficult to argue against that. You can't convince the public or the market itself that your product is viable, even though it appears to be irrational. Like, people don't behave rationally as, in a group. There's a kind of mob mentality. There are all kinds of factors that contribute to people not appreciating a product or a service, and it's important to know when you can't convince people about your product or service. There's just no market for it. So the only real way to win here is to log off or check out and walk away, and consolidate your losses if there are any, but also just appreciate that there are just some battles that can't be won, and to go looking for the pleasure results elsewhere. Right, my name's Fwrpy. Thanks for watching this video on the Backfire Effect and my series on biases. Please leave a comment below, and hopefully I'll see you next time in my next video.